Nirmala Rawat, welcome you to my YouTube channel. Currently, I am reading last chapter, chapter 23, Soma's departure. In previous part, we learned about Anusuya and Ajit's first meeting and how both are extremely fond of Mata Sita. Continuing their meeting, Anusuya speaks. I was reflecting on Soma's last words to me and asked, "You like animals, don't you?" His whole face beamed as he exclaimed, "That is an understatement. If I could, I would spend all my time with them, caring for them. But my father has other intentions for me," he sighed. Soma's voice rang within me, informing me that the man I was to marry had looked after the animals in Maharaja Janak's household, and that he had wanted to marry me, but my father would not permit it. Now, my father in this life was arranging it. How strange, I thought, that what couldn't be in that life was coming to be in this. What is it that your father wants for you? To go into administration. That is what they have planned. Our fathers. It is not what I want, but it is what I will do. It was then that Mata's words in the vision came back to me about building a new society. Perhaps it will be for the better. We must be open to that, I replied with a smile. Then added, "I'm sure there are other stories you have to tell me from your grandmother. Stories about Mata." He laughed. "I have many stories. You will hear them in good time." Facing me, he said, "I feel that you also have love for Mata. My grandmother would be so happy about that. But you also must have stories." "Many," I replied, "and you will hear them in good time." The sun was quickly descending, and it was time for us to head back, but I didn't want to leave. By now, I was hanging on to his every word. "One more story before we head back?" I asked meekly. "All right," he smiled. "I will tell you a story that my father shared with me. He once told me that, unlike what people say, Maharani Sita never really left Ayodhya, even after she retreated to the hermitage. Her presence was still felt here, and every now and then people would catch sight of her. A number of years after the birth of Rajas Love and Kush, Maharaja Ram's ministers and a handful of sages had gathered to talk about the new Gurukul that was being established for the training of young boys. Everyone was seated, but there was an empty chair beside Shri Ram. My father was present, although he was still quite young. Because of his success, he was able financially to assist one of the hermitages. Sri Ram sat listening to everyone, and then he spoke. Everyone was surprised at his message, which was the need to set up a Gurukul for girls. One by one, they shook their heads, unconvinced. Rarely did they raise objection to anything the Maharaja said or did, but about this matter, they were firm. They said, "It would bring disharmony to our society," as it had not been the tradition. Suddenly, Sri Ram paused in the middle of the discussion and asked everyone to wait patiently before taking up the topic again. They waited and waited, but Sri Ram seemed in no hurry. My father guessed that Sri Ram was expecting another person, but he had no idea who it could be. All the required people were in attendance. An hour passed, and a few of those present began to stir. But Sri Ram hushed them and gently asked for patience. Suddenly, into their midst walked several of the rishis, with Maharani Sita by their side, fully arrayed in her royal garments. She smiled at all the people in attendance and then took her seat beside Sri Ram, who then said he had asked her and the rishis to join them in person to explain why a Gurukul for girls was needed. She first asked the rishis to speak, Rishi Vasishtha said that had his wife not been fully educated in the sacred text, she would not have received the gift of Kamdhenu, who fed so many in times of need. Had his daughters not been educated, they could not have created the beautiful world they formed for their mother when she was in despair at the loss of her sons. Then Ch.23 spoke and told them that had his wife not been educated in the sacred text, she could never have gained entrance to the celestial world and seen the Mandakini river, which she later brought to earth to nourish the drought-stricken region. Then sage Agastya concurred and explained that had his wife not been educated in the sacred text, she could not have held at bay the Rakshasas who ruled the forests in the south, threatening every hermitage. Then Shri Ram spoke. He said, had his wife not been educated in the sacred texts, perhaps she would not have been able to withstand the torment of Ravan during her time in Lanka. The sages were all quiet, but Sri Ram knew what was on their minds. He said, there are some traditions that should be maintained because they link us to the past and carry a universal truth. Such is the recitation of the Vedas and the sacred mantras. But other traditions must adapt as society and the human mind develop. Traditions that are no longer useful are like empty vessels. Clinging to them holds back the progress of society. Usages must have the discrimination to know the differences between what is essential and what can be discarded because it has outgrown its use. His words had an impact, and there was a visible change on the faces of many who were seated in that august hall. Then the Maharani spoke about the women sages who had taught her in Mithila and the many women sages who came to her aid in Lanka. She said, the wives of the great rishis offered me the fruit of their tapasya that was as intense as any male sage could perform. And that is what sustained me, this and the women of Ayodhya, the mothers who are the strength of the society. Our future mothers must receive an education for the sake of the whole community. She then said that Ayodhya was growing rapidly, and unless the women could keep up with the changes, the kingdom would not be able to advance. When she was done, not one voice opposed her. Although it took many years to establish the Gurukul, there is now one for girls. Without Rajkumari Sita's intervention, this would not have been possible. Jai Shri Ram. Here we came to know about the great women sages and their achievements, which also breaks a myth about women's not being educated in previous era. Let me know if you know any other women sages and their achievements. Thank you for your time. Jai Shri Ram. Please share this video among the like-minded ones and do subscribe if not subscribed yet. Jai Shri Ram.